Have you ever felt that someone is standing at the edge of a life-changing confession, yet every time the moment arrives, they pull back into silence? Have you ever sensed that beneath their words, beneath their actions, beneath the carefully constructed mask they show the world, there is a truth waiting to emerge, a truth they desperately want to tell you, but something inside them keeps holding it back? Tonight we explore a mystery that countless people experience but few truly understand. Because sometimes the most important messages are not hidden behind lies. They are hidden behind fear. Fear of rejection, fear of vulnerability, fear of changing a connection forever. The human soul is complex. It often knows what it wants to say long before it finds the courage to say it. Deep inside every person exists a battle between authenticity and protection, between truth and fear, between the desire to be seen and the fear of what might happen when they finally reveal themselves. And perhaps someone in your life is fighting that battle right now. Perhaps there is a person whose heart carries words that have remained trapped in silence, not because those words are unimportant, but because they matter so much that speaking them feels overwhelming. Yet before you focus on what they may reveal, there is something even more important to understand. This journey is not only about another person's hidden truth, it is about your own awakening. It is about learning the difference between intuition and assumption. It is about developing the patience to allow life to unfold naturally. And it is about discovering a level of inner strength where your peace no longer depends on what someone else chooses to say. Because real power is not found in forcing answers. Real power is found in becoming so grounded within yourself that uncertainty can no longer shake your foundation. So if you've been feeling that something important remains unspoken, if you've sensed that someone is struggling to reveal what has been buried deep within their heart, then stay with me until the end. Because what you're about to hear may completely transform the way you understand silence, truth, emotional connection, and the hidden psychology behind the words people are often most afraid to speak. Human beings are naturally wired for connection. From early childhood, our sense of emotional safety is shaped by how we are received, understood, and accepted by others. As we grow older, this need for connection does not disappear. It simply becomes more complex. Because of this, many people find themselves carrying truths they deeply want to express, yet struggle to reveal. This hesitation is often misunderstood. It is easy to assume that if someone is not speaking openly, they must not care enough, or that they are being intentionally secretive. In reality, the psychology behind emotional withholding is usually far more complicated and deeply human. When a person values a relationship, the emotional stakes become higher. The more important the connection feels, the greater the fear that honesty could somehow damage it. A person may worry that expressing their true feelings will change the dynamic forever. They may fear rejection, judgment, embarrassment, or misunderstanding. In their mind, remaining silent can seem safer than risking the possibility of loss. This creates an internal conflict where the desire for authenticity battles against the desire for protection. Many people carry emotional memories from past experiences where vulnerability was not met with understanding. Perhaps they once shared their feelings and were criticized, ignored, or dismissed. Perhaps they trusted someone who betrayed that trust. These experiences can leave psychological imprints that influence future relationships. Even when they encounter someone trustworthy, old fears may continue to whisper warnings from the background of their mind. As a result, they may hold back truths that genuinely deserve expression. There is also the challenge of self-understanding. Sometimes people are not hiding their truth from others. They are still trying to understand it themselves. Human emotions are rarely simple. Love, fear, hope, uncertainty, and longing can exist simultaneously. Before someone can communicate clearly, they often need time to process what they are experiencing internally. Their silence may not indicate a lack of honesty. Instead, it may reflect an ongoing journey toward clarity. Emotional courage is not the absence of fear. It is the willingness to move through fear. Yet courage develops at different speeds for different individuals. Some people naturally express themselves openly, while others require more time before they feel ready to expose their inner world. This difference does not make one person stronger or weaker than another. It simply reflects different emotional histories and personality patterns. Understanding this reality can transform the way we interpret another person's silence. Instead of immediately assuming negative intentions, we can recognize that hidden beneath hesitation may be a very human struggle. A person who remains silent may actually care deeply. They may be protecting something precious, they may be gathering strength, they may be searching for the right words, or they may be trying to overcome fears they have carried for years. This perspective does not mean we should ignore our own needs or endlessly wait for others to speak. Rather, it invites us to approach human behavior with greater wisdom and compassion. When we understand that many unspoken truths are born from fear rather than indifference, we become less reactive and more emotionally intelligent. We learn that patience, empathy, and self-awareness often reveal more about a situation than assumptions ever could. And in that understanding, we create the kind of emotional space where truth feels safe enough to emerge naturally. One of the most misunderstood aspects of human behavior is silence. Many people immediately interpret silence as indifference, rejection, avoidance, or a lack of feeling. Yet psychological research and everyday experience often reveal something very different. Silence is not always the absence of emotion. In many cases, it is the result of emotions becoming so intense that a person struggles to express them clearly. When individuals experience powerful feelings, their minds do not always respond with openness and communication. Sometimes they respond with caution. The brain is naturally designed to protect us from situations it perceives as emotionally risky. If someone fears being misunderstood, judged, embarrassed, or rejected, they may choose silence even when they desperately want to speak. This reaction is not necessarily a conscious decision. Often, it happens automatically as a protective mechanism. Think about moments in your own life when you found it difficult to express something important. Perhaps you cared deeply about someone's opinion. Perhaps the stakes felt high. Perhaps you worried that one conversation could change everything. In those moments, words may have felt heavier than usual. The more meaningful the truth, the more vulnerable speaking it can feel. This is why emotional silence can sometimes appear confusing from the outside. A person may want connection while simultaneously fearing it. They may wish to reveal their feelings while also wanting to protect themselves from possible disappointment. These conflicting desires create internal tension. The result is often hesitation, mixed signals, or prolonged periods of quiet reflection. Carl Jung believed that many aspects of the human psyche operate beneath conscious awareness. People are not always fully aware of why they withdraw or hesitate. Sometimes they need time to understand their own emotions before they can communicate them effectively. They may be processing unresolved experiences, confronting insecurities, or trying to reconcile different parts of themselves. What appears as silence may actually be a period of profound inner work. This understanding invites a more compassionate perspective. Instead of immediately assuming negative intentions, emotional intelligence encourages us to recognize that everyone carries invisible struggles. The person who seems distant may be wrestling with fears they have never voiced. The individual who avoids difficult conversations may be trying to gather the courage necessary to face them. Their silence does not automatically define the depth of their feelings. At the same time, it is important to remember that another person's silence is not your responsibility to solve. Compassion does not require you to carry their emotional burden. You can offer understanding without abandoning your own emotional balance. You can remain open without becoming consumed by uncertainty. True emotional maturity emerges when we learn to hold space for both realities, the possibility that someone is struggling internally, and the certainty that our own worth does not depend on their readiness to speak. This balance allows us to respond with patience rather than pressure, wisdom rather than assumption, and confidence rather than fear. In the end, silence is often far more complex than it appears. Beneath it may exist fear, reflection, healing, confusion, hope, or even love. Understanding this complexity helps us become more compassionate toward others while remaining grounded within ourselves. And sometimes, when the conditions feel safe enough, the very truth that once hid behind silence finally finds its voice. One of the most misunderstood aspects of human psychology is the difference between feeling something deeply and being ready to express it. Many people assume that if an emotion is powerful enough, it will naturally be spoken, yet real life often reveals the opposite. Some of the strongest emotions remain hidden for the longest periods of time, not because they are weak, but because they are significant. Emotional intensity and emotional readiness are not the same thing. A person may carry profound affection, admiration, regret, gratitude, or even love within their heart, and still struggle to communicate it openly. The depth of the feeling does not automatically create the courage required to reveal it. In fact, the more meaningful an emotion becomes, the more vulnerable a person may feel when facing the possibility of expressing it. Psychologists often observe that people protect what matters most to them. When something feels emotionally important, the fear of losing it can become stronger than the desire to reveal it. This creates an inner conflict. One part of the person wants honesty and connection, while another part wants safety and certainty. As these opposing forces compete within the mind, silence often emerges as a temporary solution. This silence should not always be interpreted as indifference. Sometimes it is evidence of an internal process that has not yet reached completion. A person may be questioning their own feelings, examining their motivations, or trying to understand the consequences of speaking openly. They may spend countless hours replaying conversations, imagining outcomes, and weighing risks that no one else can see. The human mind naturally seeks protection from emotional pain. Before revealing a vulnerable truth, many people unconsciously ask themselves difficult questions. What if I am misunderstood? What if my feelings are not returned? What if this changes everything? What if I lose something valuable? These questions can delay communication even when the underlying emotion is genuine. This is why maturity involves recognizing that timing matters. Growth does not happen only when people speak. Growth also happens while they are gathering the courage to speak. The journey toward honesty often begins long before a confession, conversation, or revelation takes place. It begins in the private moments when an individual confronts their fears and decides whether authenticity is worth the risk. For those waiting for clarity from another person, this understanding offers an important lesson. Patience does not mean passivity. It means recognizing that every individual moves through emotional development at their own pace. Trying to force readiness often creates resistance, while allowing space can encourage greater honesty. Most importantly, remember that another person's readiness is not a measure of your worth. Their hesitation reflects their internal journey, not your value. Whether they speak tomorrow, months from now, or never at all, your personal growth should continue. Confidence is built when you stop measuring your importance through another person's ability to express themselves. The strongest relationships, friendships, and connections are not created merely by intense feelings. They are created when deep emotions meet genuine readiness, when understanding joins courage, when vulnerability joins self-awareness, and when truth finally becomes stronger than fear. That is the moment authentic communication emerges, not because the feeling suddenly appeared, but because the person finally became ready to honor what had been in their heart all along. One of the deepest insights in psychology is the realization that not everything within us exists in the light of conscious awareness. There are thoughts, emotions, desires, fears, and memories that remain hidden beneath the surface of everyday consciousness. Carl Jung referred to this hidden realm as the shadow. Contrary to popular belief, the shadow is not simply a collection of negative traits. It is the part of ourselves that contains everything we have not fully recognized, accepted, or integrated. It may include fears of rejection, feelings of inadequacy, unresolved emotional wounds, unexpressed love, hidden talents, or aspects of our personality that we have learned to suppress in order to gain approval from others. When someone struggles to tell you an important truth, they are often wrestling with their own shadow. The truth may not be difficult because it is wrong. It may be difficult because it forces them to confront parts of themselves they have spent years avoiding. Speaking honestly can require a person to face vulnerability, uncertainty, and emotional exposure. For many people, this process feels uncomfortable because it challenges the image they have carefully built about who they believe they should be. Imagine a person carrying strong emotions they have never fully acknowledged. They may spend months or even years trying to rationalize those feelings, deny them, or push them aside. Yet emotions that are ignored do not disappear. They continue to exist beneath the surface, influencing thoughts, behaviors, and decisions. Eventually, the tension between what is felt internally and what is expressed externally becomes difficult to maintain. This creates an inner conflict. One part of the person wants to speak the truth and experience relief. Another part fears the consequences that honesty may bring. This psychological struggle is deeply human. Most people have experienced moments when they knew what they wanted to say but could not find the courage to say it. The fear is rarely about the words themselves. The fear is about what those words might change. Truth has power. It can transform relationships, alter self-perception, and create new realities. Because of this, people often delay speaking until they feel emotionally prepared. Understanding this process can help us develop greater compassion. Instead of assuming that silence means indifference, we can recognize that silence is sometimes evidence of an internal battle. The person may be navigating fears they do not fully understand themselves. They may be learning how to accept aspects of their own emotional world before they can reveal them to someone else. The shadow teaches an important lesson about human growth. Personal transformation begins when individuals stop running from the hidden parts of themselves and start examining them with honesty and courage. As self-awareness increases, fear gradually loses its power. What was once hidden becomes understood. What was once denied becomes accepted. And what was once impossible to express can finally be spoken with authenticity. This is why patience is often more powerful than pressure. Every person must face their own shadow in their own time. Real emotional maturity involves creating space for that process while continuing to cultivate your own growth, wisdom, and inner stability. The more we understand the hidden psychological forces that influence behavior, the more compassionately we can view ourselves and others. In many cases, the truth someone struggles to tell is not being blocked by a lack of feeling. It is being delayed by the profound journey of learning to face themselves honestly. One of the most overlooked truths in human psychology is that genuine communication does not begin when a person starts speaking. It begins long before that, in the silent relationship they have with themselves. Many people believe that communication problems are caused by a lack of words, but in reality, the deeper issue is often a lack of inner alignment. When thoughts, emotions, beliefs, and desires are in conflict within a person, their ability to express themselves clearly becomes difficult. They may want to tell the truth, yet feel afraid of the consequences. They may desire connection, yet fear vulnerability. They may know what they feel, yet struggle to understand why they feel it. This internal conflict creates hesitation, confusion, and emotional distance. Psychological research consistently shows that self-awareness plays a crucial role in healthy relationships. A person who understands their emotions is more capable of expressing them in a constructive way. However, many individuals spend years avoiding certain aspects of themselves. They suppress feelings, ignore fears, and hide insecurities because confronting them feels uncomfortable. As a result, when an important moment of honesty arrives, they often find themselves unable to communicate what is truly happening inside. This is why self-discovery is such a powerful process. Before someone can offer authentic truth to another person, they must first recognize that truth within themselves. They must become willing to sit with their emotions instead of running from them. They must learn to observe their fears without allowing those fears to control their actions. Only then can genuine communication emerge. Carl Jung often emphasized the importance of bringing unconscious material into conscious awareness. In simple terms, this means becoming aware of the hidden motivations, fears, and desires that influence behavior. Many people are not intentionally withholding the truth. Instead, they are still discovering it. They are trying to understand parts of themselves that have remained buried beneath years of conditioning, disappointment, or emotional protection. This understanding can transform the way we view other people's silence. Instead of assuming that silence means indifference, we begin to recognize that silence can sometimes be evidence of an internal journey. A person may be sorting through emotions they do not fully understand. They may be attempting to reconcile conflicting feelings. They may be learning how to express something that feels deeply significant to them. There is also an important lesson here for personal growth. If we want stronger relationships, clearer communication, and deeper connections, we must cultivate self-awareness within ourselves. The more honest we become about our own emotions, the less afraid we become of authentic conversations. We develop the courage to speak with clarity because we are no longer fighting against ourselves internally. True communication is not merely the exchange of words, it is the alignment of mind, heart, and intention. When a person reaches that state, their truth naturally becomes easier to express. Their words carry authenticity because they are no longer fragmented by inner conflict. And when communication emerges from that place of self-awareness, it has the power to create understanding, healing, and genuine human connection. One of the most powerful yet misunderstood principles in human psychology is that people reveal their deepest truths only when they feel emotionally safe. Many assume that if something is important enough, a person will simply come forward and say it. In reality, the human mind does not operate that way. The heart often protects itself before it expresses itself. When someone is carrying a difficult truth, whether it involves love, regret, fear, vulnerability, or personal transformation, they may spend a long time wrestling with their emotions before finding the courage to share them. This process is not usually about deception. It is often about self-protection. Emotional safety is the invisible environment that allows honesty to emerge naturally. When people fear judgment, criticism, rejection, or misunderstanding, they instinctively become more guarded. Their nervous system shifts into a protective state. Instead of opening up, they begin filtering their thoughts, suppressing their emotions, and carefully monitoring what they reveal. The more pressure they feel, the stronger this protective response becomes. Ironically, the harder someone pushes for answers, the more difficult it often becomes for the other person to speak honestly. This dynamic appears in friendships, romantic relationships, family connections, and even professional environments. A person may desperately want to express what they are feeling, yet fear the consequences of being fully seen. They may wonder whether they will still be accepted if they reveal their true thoughts. They may worry that a confession will change the relationship forever. They may fear disappointment, conflict, or vulnerability. These fears can create an internal barrier that keeps important truths locked inside. Patience plays a remarkable role in dissolving these barriers. When people sense that they have room to think, feel, and process their emotions without being rushed, they often become more willing to share what is hidden. Patience communicates trust. It sends a silent message that says, "You do not have to force yourself. You can speak when you are ready." This message creates psychological comfort, and comfort creates openness. Carl Jung often emphasized the importance of allowing psychological processes to unfold naturally. Growth cannot be forced. Awareness cannot be demanded. A flower does not bloom because someone pulls on its petals. It blooms because the conditions support its growth. Human truth follows a similar pattern. The more supportive and accepting the environment, the more likely honesty will emerge on its own. There is also a deeper lesson hidden within patience. When you stop trying to control another person's timing, you begin developing mastery over your own emotional world. You learn to remain calm in uncertainty. You learn to trust the natural unfolding of events. You learn that your peace does not depend on immediate answers. This inner stability becomes one of the greatest strengths a person can possess. Sometimes the most compassionate action is not asking another question, demanding another explanation, or seeking another sign. Sometimes it is simply creating enough space for truth to feel welcome. In that space, fear gradually loses its power. Defenses begin to soften. Authenticity becomes less threatening, and eventually what was once difficult to say often finds its way into the light. The wisdom here is simple but profound. People open their hearts most fully when they feel safe enough to be imperfect, vulnerable, and real. Patience is not passive waiting. It is an active expression of emotional intelligence. It is the decision to trust that genuine truth, when given the right environment, rarely remains hidden forever. One of the most important lessons in emotional growth is understanding that your personal evolution should never be placed on hold while waiting for another person to provide answers, validation, or closure. Many people unknowingly give away their emotional power by believing that their happiness, confidence, or sense of direction depends on someone else's confession, decision, or expression of feelings. Yet psychology consistently shows that lasting emotional stability comes from within, not from external confirmation. When a person becomes emotionally attached to an outcome, they often enter a state of waiting. They wait for a message, a conversation, an explanation, or a revelation. During this period, life can begin to feel suspended, as if true peace can only arrive once the other person finally speaks their truth. However, this mindset creates a subtle dependency. It places the responsibility for your emotional well-being into someone else's hands, giving them a level of influence over your inner world that they were never meant to carry. True emotional intelligence develops when you recognize that another person's journey is separate from your own. They may need time to understand their feelings. They may be working through fears, uncertainties, or personal challenges. Their process belongs to them. Your process belongs to you. When these two paths become confused, frustration often follows. You may start analyzing every interaction, searching for hidden meanings, or interpreting silence as a message about your worth. Yet another person's inability to communicate clearly is not a measurement of your value. Personal growth requires a different perspective. Instead of focusing on what someone else has not yet revealed, focus on what life is revealing to you. Every period of uncertainty contains lessons about patience, resilience, self-respect, and emotional independence. These lessons often become visible only when you stop directing all your attention toward another person's actions and begin examining your own inner development. There is also a profound freedom that emerges when you stop needing immediate answers. This freedom does not mean you stop caring. It means your peace no longer depends entirely on external circumstances. You can appreciate a connection without becoming consumed by it. You can remain open to possibilities without losing yourself in expectations. You can hope for honesty while still moving forward with confidence and purpose. Many people discover that the moment they stop chasing explanations is the moment they begin reclaiming their personal power. Their energy shifts from seeking validation to building self-trust. They invest in their goals, relationships, creativity, health, and spiritual development. They become more grounded in who they are rather than who they hope someone else will become. Ironically, this inner stability often creates healthier relationships because it removes pressure and allows authentic communication to emerge naturally. Your life is far too valuable to be paused while waiting for another person's moment of courage. Continue growing, continue learning, continue expanding your understanding of yourself. Let your happiness be built upon your values, your character, and your purpose, rather than upon information that has not yet arrived. If a truth is meant to be shared, it will eventually find its way into the light. Until then, do not postpone your journey. The greatest transformation often happens when you realize that your future does not begin after someone else's confession. It begins the moment you choose to keep moving forward. One of the most important psychological truths a person can learn is that genuine truth has its own timing. Human beings often want immediate answers because uncertainty creates discomfort. When we sense that someone is holding back their feelings, thoughts, or intentions, the mind naturally begins searching for clarity. It wants certainty. It wants closure. It wants to know what is hidden. Yet life rarely unfolds according to our preferred schedule. Some truths emerge quickly, while others require months or even years before they can be fully understood and expressed. From a psychological perspective, people do not reveal important truths only when they recognize them. They reveal them when they become emotionally capable of facing the consequences that come with them. A person may know exactly how they feel, yet remain silent because they fear rejection. They may understand what they want, yet hesitate because they are afraid of change. They may carry deep affection, regret, admiration, or even a life-changing realization, but still struggle to express it because they have not yet developed the courage necessary to bring that truth into the open. This process is deeply connected to personal growth. Before a truth can be spoken, it often needs to mature within the individual. People frequently spend long periods wrestling with their emotions, questioning their motives, confronting their fears, and trying to understand themselves. What appears from the outside as delay or avoidance may actually be an invisible process of inner development. The soul is preparing itself for honesty. The mind is gathering the strength required for authenticity. This is why patience is such a powerful form of wisdom. Patience does not mean passively waiting for someone else to change. It means understanding that every person is walking their own path towards self-awareness. When we attempt to force truth before someone is ready, we often create resistance. But when we allow people the space to arrive at their own understanding, honesty becomes more natural and sustainable. Carl Jung often emphasized that much of human behavior is influenced by unconscious processes. Many people are unaware of the forces shaping their decisions. They may feel drawn toward a truth without fully understanding why. They may sense that something important is trying to emerge from within them, yet lack the language to express it. Over time, however, what remains hidden seeks consciousness. What remains buried seeks recognition. The psyche naturally moves toward integration and wholeness. This is why truth possesses a remarkable quality. It tends to reveal itself eventually, not always through dramatic confessions or grand declarations, but often through consistent actions, changing behaviors, unexpected decisions, and moments of genuine vulnerability. Reality has a way of bringing hidden things into the light. Authentic emotions are difficult to suppress forever because human beings naturally desire alignment between their inner world and their outer lives. For your own growth, the lesson is not to spend your life waiting for another person's revelation. The lesson is to continue evolving, regardless of when that revelation arrives. Build your confidence, strengthen your self-awareness, deepen your understanding of yourself. The more secure you become within your own identity, the less dependent you are on external validation or answers. Then, when the truth finally appears, whether tomorrow or years from now, you will be able to receive it with wisdom rather than desperation. Trust that what is genuine does not need to be chased endlessly. What is real has a natural tendency to emerge. Life moves in seasons, and every season reveals what the previous one was preparing. Sometimes the greatest act of faith is not believing that someone will eventually tell you the truth. It is believing that whatever truth is meant for you will reach you at the moment when both you and the other person are ready to understand it.